President Trump announcing a plan to end birthright citizenship here in the United States.
However, that idea may violate the U.S. Constitution. Here now to talk about that and more in today's Inside the Law, Fox 5 legal analyst Wendy Patrick. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so here's my take on this. I think the president has been speaking with a lot of his lawyers in the White House to figure this out. So the 14th Amendment of the United States in the Constitution, anyone born or naturalized in the U.S. is a U.S. citizen,
right?
Correct? So the president wants to essentially change the Constitution through executive order. Can he do that?
I am sensing a bit of skepticism.
What you're sensing is I have no idea. If he's asking a bunch of lawyers at the White House about this, that means this is something that a lot of people have to look into.
Here's why this is so interesting, Raul and Charlie. This is a sign of the times. In other words, you have these established clauses of the Constitution that we've assumed for years are absolutely immutable except by acts of Congress and other ways that you can change them. And you get a president in office that's saying, oh no, I can just make an executive order. But what we're seeing, remember he tried this with the travel ban, what we're seeing is an enormous amount of pushback that will no doubt cause him to rethink his position. Now, we're a week out from the midterms and you wonder whether this is about migrants or the midterms. This is one of those things where the timing is suspect. But if you really drill down and look at the merits involved here, there have been legal scholars. I know, lawyers will argue all kinds of different things. There have been scholars that have said, oh, the 14th Amendment originally was never intended to apply to the children of non-citizens. That wasn't the purpose of it. But to actually take that argument forward and expect it to be upheld by the courts, even with the Supreme Court as newly constituted by Trump's new appointees, that's going to be an uphill battle. And I wouldn't be surprised if this, as with other things the president has said, is simply something that's said once and not followed up on. We'll have to see.
Okay.
I want to talk about two other big stories that we've been covering, two criminal cases that are both happening, both considered, Wendy, to be hate crimes. We have the man who killed 11 people at the synagogue, and then the other man who sent the bombs through the mail. How do these cases, are they similar? Are they different? There's just so many people talking about what's happening right now.
Well, the one thing they have in common is the fact that hate is deadly. And I think if we start there, you learn, well, gosh, how can we all understand that. And these are two different manifestations of hatred. But how do you catch this before something is mailed, bombs are mailed, or God forbid somebody walks into a church or a synagogue or a place of faith with a rifle? These two men couldn't have been more different offline. The first one, Cesar Sayoc, look, his van was an eyesore of propaganda. He was spewing hatred in the places he lived, saying terrible things. But then look at Robert Bowers. He was the axe murderer next door. How was he described? He kept to himself. He was quiet. He was described as forgettable. How would you like to be described that way? Well, what's Raul like? He's forgettable. I mean, he barely made a footprint. But what do these men have in common? When you look online, that is where their digital footprints were very easy to follow. What they stood for, what they thought, what they said, what they were planning in the case of Robert Bowers right before the massacre at the synagogue. So you have to think, well, are there sites in which like-minded individuals like this can foment and can find people that hate just like they do and can be both encouraged and empowered to carry out acts of violence like they did? That's the problem, that's the challenge, and that's what social media is trying to combat.
Both were based in hate and instilled fear ongoing.
That's right.
What do you do with these online posts? It seems like now there's a pattern, a proven pattern, of people who do these horrific crimes. And then afterwards is when we're looking at, we'll look at their Twitters, their Facebook, it was all there.
But you can't,
all there. If they don't do anything, is that enough that you cancel the Twitter account? And that's about the extent of it unless you act.
That's right, and it's up to users because sites themselves cannot possibly police the millions and millions of users. But we can report, and that's just it. Somebody says something but does nothing about it except maybe comment, oh, that's a terrible post.
Right.
Reporting these types of posts will allow the accounts to be taken down quicker, and the result will be less opportunity for this to foment and for this to be discussed.
Where is the line that is drawn between saying hateful things
and
a legally challengeable threat to someone?
That's right, and here's the answer to that. Sites like Facebook and Twitter are much better at policing content that is encouraging violence and hate speech. There are other sites that permit hate speech, but not encouraging violence. And then there's that gray line that people like Robert Bowers and Cesar Sayoc try to toe. The more users that report these incidents, the faster those accounts come down if they're questionable. Let's err on the side of caution.
Wendy, before I let you go, and I've just been thinking about this over the past few days, because I know that opinions haven't changed and people have thought these things, many of them, for a long time.
Right.
Is it just me, or are we just hearing it out loud more, or we're seeing it happen more? I mean, I've heard things, you know, even said to me personally, that I just can't imagine that somebody would say that out loud, but yet they've been thinking this the whole entire time. Now they have permission, I feel like, to say it. It's okay to say it.
Yeah, Shali, that's such a great question. It goes back to Raul's question about where is the line, and social media has almost made it, I don't ever want to use the term acceptable, but normal. That we are seeing and hearing things that are so offensive. We never would have verbalized such thoughts even 10 years ago. So ironically, although we're moving towards a more politically correct society, for some reason, some people are also moving in the other direction and expressing things that 10 years ago we would have known better to never express.
A lot of the extreme thoughts, extreme views, extreme actions, the social media has made it so much easier for people to find like-minded individuals.
That's
and all of a
exactly
sudden,
it. That's the challenge.
We're not on the fringe anymore. We have our small group that we all agree, so I'm not alone, and then that emboldens them to do.
It emboldens them and almost makes them feel like it's normal or like it's okay to talk like that. Excellent points.
Yeah. Wendy Patrick.
Thank you.
I could talk to you
Thank
for
you.
hours, you know.
I know.
Likewise.
I'm telling you, if she was my law professor, I would have never quit law school.
Still go back, Shali.
Nope, we're done.
I always say you would have made a
We're
great
both done.
lawyer.
I'm good. 7:24, still ahead.